the better school. And I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about how important it is to change our current educational system. And mind you, it's a responsibility that we all share. It's easy to mention and feel that it's something our teachers or our principals are going to take care of. But I really think that as a society, all of us really need to come together and think through problems that our current schools are facing. So, as you can see, this is the cover of the book. And I'd like to tell you why I started writing about it. As an educator, many years ago, when I was within the walls of the classroom, I started to notice certain shifts, certain changes. And this is before AI was as viral as it is right now. I could see that even without the artificial intelligence becoming as great as it is, and as useful and as available as it is right now, even back then, children were asking me that what is the relevance of our schools today? What is the point of us coming to schools every day? And of course, these were slightly older children who were questioning me about the relevance of the school. I really started thinking and digging deep into this question. Gradually, as I started working with more teachers, principals, and school leadership, even parents, I was beginning to find a pattern. Everybody was quite short-sighted in their approach and their relationship with the schools, right? We were extremely concerned with what mattered to us, but nobody really was able to see the whole ecosystem and how it was connecting with each other. So the book begins by explaining how the entire ecosystem is connected, and at the same time, what are the ways in which we can fix this entire system. Okay. Now, as I was digging this problem deeper and deeper, there's a phenomena that I started to observe. And you can see that very well through this illustration that I'm about to share, which I've kind of tried to term it as the learning abyss. If you think about it, let's take an example, right? You've got a student who's giving an exam and is scoring, let's say, 60 out of 100. Now, we know for a fact that their 40% or 40 marks are somewhere lost. Maybe the child is thinking about it, speaking to their teacher that, okay, where did I go wrong? What was the problem? But beyond those surface level interactions, we don't really think through the loss that has happened. And obviously, because it's a 60% mark, the learner is promoted to the next grade. And they continue perhaps moving forward in their learning journey with these minor gaps. Cumulatively, when you account for these gaps, they fall into this abyss. This abyss, by the way, also includes independent connections that a learner would have made on their own. But because they were not validated by an adult in their ecosystem, they often forget about it. Maybe it was not important to remember. And it starts falling into this abyss. And therefore, the biggest problem of our education system today is the fact that within each learner, within each school, this learning abyss keeps expanding. And it's extremely important for all of us to reduce this gap. And it's one of the silent crises that's just passing us by and we're not really able to address it. And probably because it's a little too difficult to notice it. But within the book, there are tangible tools and ways in which schools can find these loopholes and start and begin the journey of minimizing them. Yes, it's going to take time, but it's not an easy solution, because you can imagine how it's important for all of us to enhance each and every learner's agency, empowering them and making them the protagonist of their learning journey, right? Think about it, right? When we try to solve for these kind of problems, let's look at the entire 12 years of a learner that go through the schooling system, right? You've got grade 1 to grade 12. More than a decade that one of us spends in school. It's quite a big time. Think about a plant that is taking roots. It's gradually sprouting. branching, perhaps also then exploring and ultimately harvesting a fruit. And that's the journey that we take from grade 1 to grade 12. Throughout this journey and this analogy, there are various of physiological as well as psychological changes that our learners are going through. And it's really important to tap into those for each school to curate and visualize these journeys in a more meaningful and purposeful ways. Today's mainstream schools ultimately are, because of administrative ease, bifurcating themselves into primary school, middle school, and senior school. And therefore, it perhaps becomes easy to put blame and point fingers on each other that maybe because your basics were not finalized or strongly rooted in X grade, you are not able to perform well today. And that shifts the blame, right? It's easy for us to conveniently say that this was not my fault, or this was not, this is a way too big of a gap for us to solve or think about now. But what if we started imagining our journeys more purposefully, just the way we saw this plant growing? And there are ways in which we can now think of a creative solution, not dramatically or drastically changing our mainstream schools, because we all know that's not the purpose here. We don't want to shock our current systems, but bring about tweaks and changes which are easy to do. So let me introduce to you the concept of grade groups. Think about it. Every year you move from grade 1 to 2 to 3, like an annual year cycle kept repeating. Somehow we all thought that a 365-day calendar brings about administrative and managerial ease. But does it always make sense to quantify the journey of a learner within a 1-year timeline and assume that we keep shifting them? And it also, by the way, pushes the teachers and puts this constraint on them that they have to finish the syllabus within one given year, that they have to rush through these concepts because they are on a timeline and that they are on a clock. Now, what's conveniently missed out in this is the pace of our learner. One person or one student in the class was able to keep up with the teacher, but there were many others who weren't. And that pace and that difference is not really known. It is very difficult to quantitatively measure that gap. So how about we flip this idea? Instead of a year-on-year journey, what if we take a 3-year journey or a 3-year timeline to finish X amount of syllabus? You've got your learners in a first our routing grade group, which is from grade 1 to 3. Whatever subjects and concepts you have within those, the learner has 3 years to accomplish those. Let's say maybe while they're learning English as a language, they're conveniently and very quickly passing through all the levels that they were supposed to. But for something like a math subject, or maybe when they were playing scientific or they're being introduced to scientific concepts, they're struggling a bit, they need more time. So instead of pushing them to cover things in grade 1, we're giving them a 3-year timeline. And this same concept we repeat for our successive grade groups, which is from 4th grade to your 6th grade, from your 6th grade to 8th grade, and from your 9th grade to your 12th grade. You're giving them more time and more opportunity to complete their curriculum at their own pace when they feel that they have achieved this proficiency. And that is the concept of grade groups. Now, you could ask me that assessments kaise honge? How do we get to the point where we can calculate how somebody gets into it, right? So it's quite simple. We can simply have benchmarking criteria at the time every grade group ends. Next grade में promote होने से पहले, 4th grade में आने से पहले, 3rd में ही आपकी assessment हो जाएगी by, of course, your educators and everybody else that yes, I feel confident that this learner can now move to the 4th grade, and so on and so forth, right? Now, ठीक है, इसका मतलब age जो है और timeline जो है वो हमने थोड़ी सी हिला दी है. We've made them more fluid than they usually are. So how do we make sure that every subject is able to accommodate this kind of dynamic learning level? And the answer to that is your subject-specific labs. Imagine you walk into an English lab where there are curated readings already placed and ready for a learner to browse through and explore. These could include not just textbooks from grade 1 to 12, but also supplementary reading material. On the other corner of that room is an expressive corner where the learner is able to try their hands on poetry that they've written or any reading material or writing material that they would like to share with their educator as well as their peers, right? So you've now entered a language lab which is filled with posters, filled with material that is relevant to that subject. You suddenly enter into this realm of this subject and you're able to visualize the depth that one can achieve. Rather than the prescribed textbooks that one student receives every year, they are introduced to this whole new world that is now on their toes, up for them to explore and grab. And this becomes an interactive way for us to maintain the grade groups and introduce more dynamic level of learning within our normal and traditional schooling methods, right? Now, one could ask me कि इसके लिए तो बहुत शायद पैसे लगेंगे. You might think that this is an expensive idea, but if you think about it, it's really not. It starts from a place of intention. Let's assume there are schools today who are not able to invest this sort of funds and money into this kind of an infrastructure. We could ask our learners to create these posters. Perhaps for a week or for a month, a normal classroom could be converted into a subject lab for our learners to experience the depth. You could have all the learners work together on this and building community and camaraderie through this, right? So that's really the idea that we're trying to explore through subject labs. If we keep moving forward, you'll notice that this is becoming a very engaging school system that I'm describing to you. And you might feel like, okay, what are other such exciting ideas you might want to think about? Maybe you want to implement them. And I've got another idea for you, something that we call community pods. Now, have you ever wondered about your house system that you were a part of? Maybe you were categorized into a blue house or a red house. Sometimes you were named after personalities, rivers, anything and everything in between. Now, the purpose of this house was usually maybe for a sports day or for a cultural day event, and after that, there was really no utility. I mean, the purpose of this entire house system was to build some sort of community and camaraderie, but it just became a system that we prolonged and continued for and never really re-looked at it. So how about we think about community pods where membership is not fixed, it's rotational. You've got one community pod that is talking about campus maintenance, sustainability on campus. How many times do we need to water our plants? What kind of plants do we need to get inside our campus to make sure that they ultimately grow into trees maybe? How is the sewage wastewater treatment working on our campus, right? So on and so forth. Similarly, there could also be a community pod focusing on academic activities that the children are suggesting to their teachers. And this becomes an interactive way to grow responsibility, accountability, and also camaraderie, not just between our learners, but on the infrastructure where they are coming every day. This becomes a very tangible and easy to implement tool in which things in an otherwise boring school curriculum just come to life. And if you really think about it, it's not a complicated change to execute. So that's, one of another ideas that's mentioned in the Better School. If you think about it, and if we continue down this pathway where we're thinking of simple tweaks, easy to implement ideas that will change the way our traditional school model continues to function. Let me share one of the most, easy to do offerings, which is the progress report. Every year, we all received an annual report card, which sort of labeled your performance in subjects in a very quantitative manner. You were labeled either as a topper or a backbencher, or you failed. There were so many labels that are simply coming from this piece of paper. And if you think about it, I ask so many college students and they're like, I don't even know where those report cards are. I don't even remember. I don't think they really mattered. But the moment I received them, they felt like a lot. They decided a lot for my future or my presence in the school. And so to that idea, why don't we think about creating and building a self-progress report? Along with existing systems that schools may want to continue, what if we asked our learners, even if it is just as a parent, you might want to try this idea, that you want them to make and write their own progress report. What happened in the sports they played? What happened in the activities they participated in? What happened to their interpersonal relationships? And let them reflect on their journey and how they felt their year went. Let's give them a platform and hear about how they think their progress went. Because it's very important to instill in our learners the ability to reflect, the ability to introspect and think through how their academic journey is progressing. And this is, by the way, a very necessary skill that's going to become very important for their future. So throughout this particular journey that I've taken you on, think about the ways in which they're gaining skills. They're gaining the skills of collaboration by working with their peers who are not just, by the way, from their same grade, could be seniors, could be juniors, who are coming together for a purpose. And when we start making these little tweaks and bringing about these little changes, you'll ultimately realize that we've started building a community. We are building this ecosystem where it feels easy to be relevant, where it feels like I'm included, something that I'm a part of, and which will help us probably give our learners an answer as to why schools are important. And I think we should give that a little bit of a thought. So if you'd like to explore more, I invite you to, of course, buy the book, but I'd be more than happy to discuss more, speak with you more, and get to know what your ideas are on what you just heard. So with that, thank you so much. You've been a very patient audience, and I'm so glad that I got a chance to explain what my book is about. Thank you.